continue. Others suggest that there is a group of people who have held the country hostage and created barriers that prevent the emergence of quality leadership. Whichever school of thought you belong to, one thing we all agree is that something has to change. It is for this reason, and in recognition of the importance of the theme of today's annual Founders Day lecture, that the Planning Committee, in its wisdom, decided to do something unusual in the selection of the keynote speaker and panel discussants. The keynote speaker and panel discussants are people I will refer to as generals in the battlefield. These are people who took the bull by the horn and battled the establishment in a bid to break down the barriers and ensure the emergence of quality leadership. For the keynote speaker, by the time you listen to his citation, you will realize that he has been in constant battle, swimming against the tide since 1999, and always found a way to survive. By the time we listen to him and the discussants who will share their personal experiences, while we will not need to physically march around the walls of Nigeria like they did in Jericho, we don't even need to march around once, not to talk about 7 times, in order to bring down the walls of bad leadership. I am hopeful that the insight that this gentleman will provide will give us inspiration that we need to create a pathway for the emergence of effective leadership in Nigeria. I am most grateful for your attention, and I ask you to look forward to a very interesting conversation in the course of today's proceedings. I thank you.
Kingsmen, ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for the Chairman 2023 Kingswick Planning Committee, Mr. Olumide Akpata. Thank you very much, sir, for the thought-provoking welcome address. Kingsmen, ladies and gentlemen, at this junction, I would like to invite the President, King's College Old Boys Association, Alhaji Kashim Ibrahim Imam, OFRCON, to deliver a speech. You're welcome, sir.
Glory at all. May I start by recognizing our elders on the Board of Trustees, and there are quite a few here. The distinguished old boy, also a most distinguished Nigerian, Kadu Idika Kadu, former Minister of Finance, is here. Captain Femi Adegoke is here. Chief J.K. Randall is here. I hope that I've not left out anybody. I welcome our trustees. May I also welcome our special guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Education, and also the Honorable Minister of State Education, who are both represented here. Our keynote speaker, the man who will deliver the 2023 Annual Founders Day Lecture, in the person of His Excellency, Senator Inaya Abaribe, former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and Olu is right. Senator Abaribe is a fighter. We actually consciously selected very distinguished Nigerians who have fought very hard. Senator Abaribe, I believe, has been in office since the year 1999. From 1999 to the year 2007, he was Deputy Governor of Abia State. And from 2007 till date, he has been an elected senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm not quite sure, but I think this is his 4th term. We also have on the list of our panelists, most distinguished old boys. We have Funsho Doherty, who ran for the governorship of Lagos State on the platform of ADP. We have Antonio Cole, another distinguished old boy, my party's candidate in Rivers, and that is a very tough one. The most distinguished, Itigwe Ua, SAN, who contested the governorship on the platform of ABBA for Abia State. We also have the newly minted special advisor to Mr. President, an honorable member of the Federal House of Representatives, and I still believe that he's going back there, in the person of Babajide Obanikoro. He's here. And our moderator, a very distinguished medical practitioner, the CEO of George's Hospital, in the person of Dr. Tokumbo Shitabe. I recognize and welcome the PKC. May I also welcome my colleagues, the members of the ESCO of the King's College Old Boys Association. My deputy, Dr. Leke Oshuni, is here, the General Secretary, in the person of Barrister Rotimi Aladesomi is here. Some of the vice presidents are here, and several permanent ESCO members are all here. I equally welcome the members of the School-Based Management Committee, led by our own Alaji Jani Ibrahim. May I welcome all the old boys here present, and to the future of our country, our future leaders, the present students of King's College Lagos, I say welcome. It's always a pleasure to come back to King's College, always. Today is very significant for me because today, this Founders Week celebration marks our 6th year, and it also marks the end of our tenure, my tenure, as president of the King's College Old Boys Association. On Sunday, to round up the activities, the week-long activities, we'll hold our annual general meeting, and we'll be electing a new ESCO. So I'll be addressing you in my capacity as president of the King's College Old Boys Association today for the last time. On Sunday, we'll have a brand new president and a brand new ESCO to pilot the affairs of the old boys. It's been a well-fought journey, I'm happy to say. I also look forward to retirement. I am sure the old boys will agree with me if I say that I've added quite a significant number of gray hairs since I first assumed duties as president of the Old Boys Association. The association has significantly done well, if you allow my immodesty in saying so, and we will continue to do well, I believe, even after I hand over the mantle of leadership is here. The total population of the college was just 500. In my class, we are only 60, 30 in 1A and 30 in 1 alpha. As I said, 600, 60 in each class. We made it known to the Honourable Minister and the PAMSEC, as well as the directors of the Federal Ministry of Education, that that was unacceptable. And we fought it. Today we have only 40 students in each class. That is quite significant. I'm also happy to report to you that the old boys have been responsible for most of the renovation works across both campuses. For our centenary, we spent 1 billion naira renovating the main campus alone. Since then, year in, year out, various class sets have stepped forward to undertake the renovation of various projects. And I want to, on behalf of the ESCO, thank all the different class sets that have done this. I also want to urge the other class sets to equally step forward. We have a lot of work to do. Now, I want to address our pet project, one that all Kingsmen are most concerned about, and that is the PPP project. It is the most considered opinion of the All Boys that the federal government should, as a matter of urgency, hand over the management of King's College Lagos to our trustees and to the ESCO of the King's College All Boys Association. The federal government is very busy with too many very important projects, in particular in the fields of security, defense, the economy, and I can go on and on. I believe that it will do all the unity schools, not only King's College Lagos, a lot of good if the management of King's College is handed over to us. And also, the management of Queen's College is handed over to the ESCO
So it's presently not in Abuja, but because of the special consideration given to this occasion, he assigned me to present him and to also seek for apology from all of you for his unavoidably absence. First of all, I am very pleased to be here with you for this special occasion, marking the 114th anniversary of this citadel of lining the King's College, Lagos. This event marks another milestone in our collective effort at revamping the educational sector to better serve the critical and aspiration of the generality of Nigeria. King's College was established to produce students of profound character and academic excellence, men who will contribute to the building of veritable egalitarian unity and democratic Nigeria. Suffice me to say that this institution is counted among the best college in terms of prestige, character formation, discipline, and academic excellence. It has lived up to the expectation, vision, mission, and has indeed produced men of character, men of competence, and capacity. For this, I salute you all. The theme for this year, King's Week, dismantling the barriers, creating a pathway for the emergence of effective leadership in Nigeria, is very apt. This is because education is a very important tool in dismantling every barrier and creative, effective, qualitative, and passionate leadership globally. Education aids knowledge-based decision, policies, and improve the economic, social, political, and cultural spheres of any nation. It is only through qualitative, efficient, and functional education that the human capital required to meet challenges of the present and the future can be developed. Therefore, the kind of education that can be provide competitive advantage in the present global knowledge economy, where knowledge and ideas are central to development, must be of good quality. The attainment of the desired educations that will lead to the emergence of effective leadership in Nigeria require collaborative effort of all stakeholders. This is one of the reasons I sincerely commend the effort of the King's College Boys Association. Your contribution to the development of this college and Nigeria in general is noted and also appreciated. I wish to inform this gathering that the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is fully committed to overhauling the education sector and making a significant impact to the education sector as a matter of priority. This administration is ready to triple education spending over the next 4 years from the current 8% to 25%. Will receive technical and vocational education by establishing local technical institutes to absorb the million of young school leavers, and will initiate creative ways of funding tertiary education to end the culture of strike and the shutdown of higher institutions in Nigeria. Finally, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that getting it right in our education sector will lead to a new paradigm in getting the right, competent, passionate, and effective leadership in all spheres and dimensions of leadership. And the outcome will be sustainable and development. I thank you so much for listening and wish you successful King Weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, the representative of the Honorable Minister of State for Education. Thank you for the goodwill message. Kingsmen, ladies and gentlemen, it is about that time we get right into the business of the day, where we interrogate the subject of leadership in Nigeria. And to do this, allow me the distinct honor and privilege to introduce our moderator for the day, Our moderator for the day is a king's man. He is also the son of a king's man. He's the scoring of a political dynasty. A king's man from the set of 82 to 88. A medical practitioner trained in King's College Lagos, King's College London, Cranfield University, and is the managing director, CEO, Duchess Hospital in Ikeja. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me as I bring on stage our moderator of the day, Dr. Tokunbo Shitabe. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. No, that's fine for now. Yes. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the 114th King's Week. It is my distinct pleasure to act as moderator in the hopefully very vibrant, quite inciting discussion we are about to have. The theme, of course, is dismantling the barriers, creating a pathway for the emergence of effective leaders in Nigeria. Permit me, of course, to stand on existing protocol, not to lean like my honorable chairman of the King's Week, but I will stand on existing protocol. And we will dive straight into the subject matter of the day. So why is it precisely that we are here pondering this question, creating a pathway for the emergence of effective leaders in Nigeria? I am reminded of my first day at King's College. I arrived here as a 10-year-old boy with my mother. And my first encounter with the then Vice Principal Academic, Mr. Shofolue, went as follows. Shitabe, I will put you in Hyde Johnson's house, your father's old house. It was clear to me on that day and in that encounter that I was about to embark upon a journey, an exciting journey of leadership, of learning, and all of good things and wonderful things that come with nation building. But there we are again, that word, leadership. So let's try and frame the context in which our discussion is about to happen. We are right here at King's College Lagos, one of the most distinguished and noble educational institutions in this country. The point, of course, of an educational system is to raise a cohort of leaders who will then go on and run the country. King's College has been doing this very, very well, extremely well for over 100 years. So why is it, therefore, that we are here pondering the question, creating a pathway for the emergence of effective leaders in Nigeria? Very interesting indeed. So what is it about our society, about ourselves, about our responsibility to society as leaders that sees to it that we are still here at this point, at which we find that the leaders that we create right here at King's College Lagos and in many institutions like this are prevented from emerging? On this panel, we have 5 distinguished guests, including our eminent keynote speaker, many of whom have been through the wars of trying to emerge through a political system that is in itself an education. There are many great leaders in banking, in business, in politics, who would very much like to give to society and give to their country. Nigeria has, in my profession, for example, exported an entire healthcare industry abroad. These are talented individuals who, quite frankly, are prevented from excelling and giving of their best right here at home. There is no doubt that it is the innate desire of every individual raised, born in this country to give back to this country. So what is it that prevents us from emerging, reaching those realms of leadership, to ensure that we are able to give our best? That really is the question we're here to ponder today. I will pause at this point, having framed the question, hopefully provided some context for the discussions we're about to have, and give the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker to the chairman of the King's Week 114, Mr. Olu Akpata. Once he has done that, I will come back to introduce the other speakers. Mr. Olu Akpata, thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can I kindly ask Senator of the Federal Republic, Inaya Abaribe, to kindly come forward and stand on the podium, sir, while I read your citation. The thing about King's College is that our college promotes diversity. Our college allows for us all to express our views. There's no hampering. There's no gagging at King's College, sir. We are free to speak our minds. And that's why we are who we are. So, and the demography at King's College is diverse as the college. So to some of us, King's College old boys, Abaribe is a hero. To some of us, younger Nigerians, table shakers, Abaribe is a hero. And so it's my distinct pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you to Senator Einaya Abaribe, who on the 13th of June, 2023 will be inaugurated, was inaugurated for a 5th term in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he was minority leader of that body until May 2022. He represents Abia South Senatorial District. Enyi, as he is called, has been a senator since 2007 when he first won elections to the parliament and is currently serving his 5th term. He has occupied several positions at the Senate, but he is currently Chairman, House Senate Committee on Power. And he represents the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA. Senator Abaribe was a deputy governor of Abia State from 1999 to 2003 during the administration of Governor Ojuz Okalu at the inception of the current democracy in May 1999. Due to differences with the governor over style and substance of administration, Senator Abaribe became the first deputy governor in the Fourth Republic to undergo an attempt at impeachment. He survived 3 impeachment attempts and resigned from the position of deputy governor on 7th March 2003 and opted to run for the office of governor against the incumbent. He actualized this desire in the elections of 2003 and in the process created one of the most enduring and effective political movements in Abia State called Otonu Movement. Despite losing the race, Enyi is in keeping with his philosophy of learning from failure, refused to give up in despair or give in to despair and continued in his service to Abia State and Nigeria. And in 2005, he was appointed chairman of the Council of Nigerian Institute of Educational Policy and Administration in Ondo State, a UNESCO-funded institute that trains teachers and administrators, a position he held until June 2007. As an economist, Enyi has been a lecturer, corporate executive, public servant, and a private businessman. From high school in Adventist High School, here, and the great government college, Umuahia, where he obtained, I said the great, not the best, where he obtained a distinction in WAEC in 1974, to the great University of Benin City, where he obtained both his MSc in 1979, his BSc in 1979, and his MSc in 1982. He has always demonstrated high academic capabilities and an enduring affinity for the world of letters. From 82 to 85, he was a lecturer at what is now known as the Ambrose Ali University, from where he moved to SCOA as a trainee manager. He joined Nikon PLC in 1990 as an investment manager, responsible for managing several billions of naira investment portfolio of the insurance company. Enyi is the father of 3, a proud grandfather, and he's happily married to Florence Wamaka Abaribe. He's an ardent soccer fan. We will ask for his team shortly. And he has been honored in many ways by his community and by many other groups. And he's a distinguished alumnus of the University of Benin, as I have said, and he has also attended courses at the Said Business School at Oxford University and the Harvard Kennedy School of Executive Education in Massachusetts, USA. He's a member of the Aba Sports Club. He's a patron of the Eastern Ngwa Country Club and is a member of the IBB Golf Club. I will end on this note. Enyi was among the Nigerian interest groups in the 6th Senate that mobilized to persuade the parliament to pass the famous Doctrine of Necessity resolution that brought Nigeria back from the political logjam that was occasioned by the illness of late President Yaradua and all, I will add, and the shenanigans that followed that. A sound legislator, he's been among the shining lights of the parliament with his incisive contributions on the floor. The present Electoral Act that modernized elections in Nigeria was also one of his finest moments in the Senate, where he forced a division that led to the inclusion of electronic transmission of results in that piece of legislation. Ladies and gentlemen, on being elected into the 10th Senate for a record 5th term, Enyi can now be classified in the parlance of the National Assembly as an indigene of the Senate. I present to you Senator Enaya Abaribe. You are most welcome, sir. And if you are ready, I believe, are we ready to receive his address? We're ready to receive your address now, sir.
Thank you very much, Olu. I think so too. No problem. Let me take a seat while the panelists all come.
My apologies, sir.
Thank you. I will at this point invite our distinguished panelists to come up to the stage. Our first panelist is Mr. Funsho Doherty, a gubernatorial candidate for Lagos State in the 2023 general elections. We are all familiar with the incredible campaign that he ran here in Lagos State. He's an accomplished professional with a distinguished record spanning more than 3 decades. Funsho was born in 1968 to the Doherty family of Lagos Island. I have great sympathy for that. He attended King's College, Lagos, following in the footsteps of his father, late Dr. Henry Doherty. We also share that in common. Prior to entering into partisan politics, Funsho served as the Managing Director and CEO of Pensions Alliance Limited, one of Nigeria's foremost pension fund managers, and Value Alliance, the asset management business of the African Capital Alliance Group. Previously, Funsho had served as the Pioneer Managing Director and CEO of ARM Pensions. He was the pioneer chairman of the Pension Fund Operators Association, the umbrella body of all licensed pension fund managers and custodians in Nigeria. Funsho holds a master's degree in business administration from Harvard University and a BSc in accounting from the University of Lagos. Can we welcome Mr. Funsho Doherty as the first member of our panel? Next, I would like to invite Mr. Etigwe Uwa, SAN, another distinguished old boy of King's College. He's a legal practitioner. and senior partner at the commercial law firm of Stream Sowers and Corn, where he heads the firm's litigation and arbitration departments. He's a law graduate of the University of Lagos, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UK, and was conferred the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria during the 2009 conferments. He holds a master's degree in international relations and finance from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, Boston. He's currently pursuing a second master's degree in taxation at the University of Oxford. He was an aspirant for the position of governor of Abia State under the platform of APGA. He's back to legal practice, but continues to keep an active eye on the political developments both in his state, Abia, and the nation as a whole. He currently serves the King College Old Boys Association as legal advisor. Can we welcome Mr. Etigwe Ura, SAN, to the panel? Thank you. Next is another distinguished old boy who, quite frankly, needs no introduction. Mr. Tonye Patrick Cole, MNI, is co-founder of Sahara Group, an energy conglomerate founded in 1996, employing over 4,000 persons in 38 countries across Africa, Europe, and the Middle East and Asia. In 2018, Mr. Cole resigned from Sahara to contest the 2019 elections. How very brave of you, sir. And is now the gubernatorial flag bearer, well, he was, of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State in the 2023 general election. We all know how that went. His international assignments include member, World Economic Forum, Global Advisory Council on Energy, advisory board member, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Private Sector Advisory Group 2014 to 2018, is a member of the WF Pact Against Corruption Initiative, advisory council member of the Nehemiah Leadership Institute. Mr. Tonye Patrick Cole, can we welcome you to the panel, please? Thank you, sir. Right there. Next is another distinguished old boy, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ibrahim Babajide Obanikoro. He began his political journey at the tender age of 29 in 2011, when he ran for the Lagos State House of Assembly as the representative for Etiosa Constituency 2 under the platform of the People's Democratic Party, which he lost, incidentally. He later contested for the chairmanship position of the Ikoyi-Obalende Local Government Council Development Area and was declared the winner. However, his victory was eventually nullified by an appeal court verdict on technical grounds, another unfortunate hallmark of our political system. In February 2018, Babajide joined the ruling party, the All Progressive Council, in line with the Not Too Young to Run movement. In 2019 general election, he contested for the House of Representatives seat in his constituency, that is Etiosa Federal Constituency, under the umbrella of the APC and was elected. He was subsequently inaugurated as a member of the Young Parliamentarians Forum of the 9th National Assembly and elected deputy chairman. He is currently special advisor to the President on Education, a most important portfolio indeed. Mr. Obanikoro is the 5th member of our panel. Please. The time has come now for me to welcome, introduce again our esteemed keynote speaker to take the podium and deliver the keynote address. Thank you.
I think we should just go to the paper. And I would like to say to King's College Old Boys Association, thank you for letting a non-King's College old boy from Government College, Umuahia, to be the keynote speaker and the 114th lecture. Thank you, and God bless all of us. Sometime on June 12, 1987, please take note, June 12 is also a day that Nigerians showed that we can all come together. In 1987, June 12, the President of America then, Ronald Reagan, stood at the foot of what was then called the Berlin Wall. And he had to make a speech. Every American president at that time will always go to Berlin because Berlin was cut into two by this wall that was built by the Soviets. And at that time, all over the world, when you want to talk about something that is insurmountable, they will say Berlin Wall. But in 1987, when Ronald Reagan was there, he made a speech. And within that speech, he made one sentence that led to the fall of that wall. At that time, the leader of the USSR, the Soviet Republic, was Gorbachev. And Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And when he made that statement, and it reverberated across the whole world. By 1981, 89, 2 years later, the Berlin Wall fell. A few years later, the Soviet Republic crumbled. And now you have all the stands, Turkestan, all those stands. Soviet Union, of course, came down to become a smaller place than USSR. That singular speech, being so significant, is what we're going to talk about today. We have to find a way to tear down the walls that are holding Nigeria backwards. There's a late motivational speaker and preacher, Miles Monroe. He used to say, "Why would you look towards another person, a righteous man, to come and save your country?" Because that is what we're doing today. At every point that Nigerians meet, we're waiting for that person. We're looking for that person. And he says, why would you want to look for someone to break the yoke that is bedeviling your country when you can be that person? So I'm here to challenge all of us today to say that one of us, either those of them who are young and aspiring, or those of us who are much older and working for Nigeria, we must break the yoke of the barriers that are holding us. So we're not going to sit and wait for a Tinubu or an Atiku or a Peter Obi or an Obanikoro to come and tear down the wall. No, each and every one of us has the potential to tear down this wall. Unfortunately, when we look at the walls, they look so insurmountable. But once we resolve that we are going to go through it, we can tear down the wall. And make no mistake about it. And I think the panel here, they all know it will never be easy. Like Olu said when he was introducing me, we just had the democracy elections in 1999. In June, we were sworn in. By August, I suffered the first impeachment attempt. By January 2000, I suffered the second impeachment attempt. By November 2001, I suffered the third impeachment attempt. By 2003 March, when they now wanted to start the fourth impeachment attempt, I decided to resign and go and do something else. But the point was that by standing firm, I was able to now do something for every other deputy governor in Abia that came behind me. Nobody now tried impeachment on them anymore. Every other governor now coddle them. So we must always try to break down the barrier. It will not be easy, but we can go forward. Now, what are those barriers? The first one, and let me also say that each of these barriers that are holding us back, they are intertwined. One flows into the other. You can always find that from one barrier, you go into so many other things. And so we cannot today completely talk about all the barriers, but I think that we can just make a start. And I'm sure that once we are able to break these ones that are holding us back, then we will be able to be going somewhere in Nigeria. The first one, and I dare say the one that is very, very, the one that really kills Nigeria is nothing but ethnicity. You can call it ethnicity, you can call it tribalism, you can call it primordialism. But I need to say that whenever a people put tribalism in front, they will never make a headway. And we have seen it happen in Nigeria time and time again. The last government we had, which is also Kashim's government, made they turned tribalism into statecraft. And of course, each and every one of us fought against it. Nigerians rose up and said no. And of course, I was there in the Senate, and I think that enhanced my CV a little bit, because I will always stand up and say, no, I don't agree with this one. But let me also say that I am a living example of how Nigeria used to work without tribalism. And I can tell you just a very short story. When I went to work the first time, of course I went to University of Benin, and University of Benin is not in Igbo land, I'm an Igbo. But I went there. The day I was leaving the house to go to University of Benin, my mother cried and cried. And my father said to her, why are you crying? The man is going to get there. He said, no, he's going to Benin. They are full of witches and wizards. And so I don't want my son to go where there are witches and wizards. And I said to her, well, let me go and learn how to fly without being in an aeroplane. And after we joked and went, I found that there were more Catholics in Benin than traditionalists. Look, it was a potpourri of Nigerians, and I made the best friends, and I became one of the best persons that I could be, being nurtured in that society. When I tried to get my first job after my master's degree, we were told to apply. I went to apply at the then Bendel State University. It was established by Professor Ambrose Ale. The persons that interviewed me, the first in the panel was Professor Aimaku, who is not an Igbo man. The second person was Professor Eyitayo Lambo, who later became the Minister of Health from Kogi State. I got the job. I started from University of Bendel State University as a young lecturer. 3 years later, I got another job at SCOA in Lagos here. But how did I get the SCOA job? There was a newspaper advert. I applied. I didn't hear from them again. I was doing a PhD program then at the University of Benin. And I used to drive from Kcoba to Benin to go to lectures. And I was coming that day on a Friday, and I stopped in front of University of Benin Teaching Hospital. Anybody who is passing that road knows that the teaching hospital is on the road. Opposite it were bookers where we all go to eat. So I went to go and eat. And as I was waiting, after asking for my usual eba and okra soup, as I was waiting, I saw somebody's newspaper. I think the person read it and left, Daily Times. So I took it and I was flipping through, and I saw a page where they said, please come tomorrow for interview this following persons. And I looked there, and I saw my name as number 1. I said, what? And I saw, of course, it was in out of 100 people. Where? WAEC in Yaba. That we were to do a computer-based exam. I said, okay, the roads were good. You can drive from Benin to Lagos in 3 hours. And I simply finished my meal, entered my car, forgot the lectures, drove to Lagos. The next morning, I appeared there. It was when I came for that computer-based test that we now found the real story of what happened. The personnel manager then of SCOA, his name is Mr. Ifaturoti. I think he's from either Ondo or Shun now. Ifaturoti. He was the personnel manager. He had to collect every of us who applied. And he told his staff to list the best qualified people so that he could now interview them. But you know what the staff did? They made sure that only Yorubas were invited. Every other person was not. And when he found out, he said, no, cancel it, put everybody's name in the newspaper, and let them go and take an aptitude test to make sure that there was nothing called ethnicity in that. By the time 20 of us were taken after that aptitude test, all of us came from all parts of Nigeria, which means that every part of Nigeria can and will be able to run this country if we do the right thing. So if we look at that, that will tell you my own trajectory that I said this thing. Somebody from Kcoba, Professor Imaku. Another person from Kogi, Professor Lambo. Another person from Ilesha here, Ifaturoti. We are the people that made me to come to become who I now became. Because I now worked here. While I was working for SCOA, I was working under a man called Mr. Erijo, who incidentally is from Sapele. So I never worked under any Igbo person. Yet, I was able to excel and they made me what I am today. So what I'm saying in effect is that we simply use ethnicity to make sure that we get ahead, and in the process, create this big barrier for Nigeria. And we cannot make progress except if we break down this barrier. What is the second barrier? The second one is religion. That is another thing that all Nigerians use to make sure that other people don't get ahead, the proper people don't go where they are supposed to go. At every point, we resort to religious sentiments. And so, governments justify their inability to fulfill their social contract to the people by resorting to religion. So if you go to the north, 13 million youths, kids, out of school called Al-Majiri, and you want to ask the question, why are there no Al-Majiris in Egypt? Why are there no Al-Majiris in United Arab Republic? I was in Qatar for the World Cup. I didn't see any Al-Majiri on the road. And yet, in Nigeria, we justify our inability to take care of our kids by saying, oh, leave them. We are trying to make them better religious human beings. How will you make them better if they live such miserable lives? And it's not just the Muslim religion. It's the same thing with us Christians. I used to work when I was in SCOA in along the Oshodi to Mile 2. The place is called Agulenjika. That's where my office used to be. At the time that I came to work here in Lagos in 1985, that whole stretch, starting from Toyota all the way down, was full of industries, full of a lot of every other thing except mega churches. Now, everywhere, starting from when you're coming into Lagos, all you have is churches upon churches. And I find out from what somebody said, I think I read it, that we have more than 4,000 churches established by Nigerians in the United Kingdom. 4,000. Meanwhile, the Indians, who we compete with, have shops, have industries, have every other thing, and they don't have any Hindu temple that is to that number. So the point now is, why do we leave the substance that we are supposed to use to make Nigeria progress and now use this other one? Of course, you see, when people want to do something bad, they cover it with religion. And both religion and ethnicity, there was an attempt to resolve it in the Constitution. In the 1999 Constitution, Section 14.3 and Section 14.4 is right there. And to give teeth to that, it was also established by the same parliament, the Federal Character Commission. But I think, Bonikoro, you know that your colleagues have been probing the Federal Character Commission. A commission that was set up to make sure that everybody that is in Nigeria, in the public service, and all ministries, all agencies conform to this federal character. The same commission itself now became flawed. Now, how did the commission become flawed? There was in the commission, in order to say, okay, this is federal character. When you give to these people, you give to these people. The chairman will come from the north. The secretary must come from the south. Or if the chairman is from the south, the secretary will come from the north. But what happened? A secretary, a chairman was from the south, a secretary was from the north, and then the chairman's tenure ended. And for the chairman, the new chairman had to come from the north. What it meant was that you now needed another secretary. But what happened? Because some people, in open defiance of the Constitution, left the secretary, and they now have both chairman and secretary as people from the north, and then you now ask them to supervise other people. That will not be possible when the agency itself is not. And so we find that, of course, what it meant was that people now had the gumption to racketeer with that, and then they started selling things, and all manners of stories are coming out today about how the chairman, well, you can call her chairwoman, chairperson, and the rest of the members are fighting each other in front of the House of Rep committee. They said, you sold this one. This one said, no, I didn't sell. It's you that sold, and so on and so forth. That means that if we need to change Nigeria, we must deal with the matter of religion and inequities. The next one is justice and equity. Nothing engenders the feeling of helplessness in Nigerians when a citizen is treated as a second-class citizen. Nothing. There's no way you can paper it over, but what we see that happens in Nigeria today, this barrier of injustice and inequity is beyond anything that we... And so, my good friends who have been in the battlefield, from Doherty to Etigwe to Tonye, Fela Anikulapo Kuti did a song about this. He did a song in honor of the late Thomas Sankara. And he said in that song, when one good man wants to come out, you know what the rest will do to him. They will plan against him. They will work against him. So this is what you have just seen, all of you, and I saw it, and I have been seeing it in there. That is one of the things that kills Nigeria. Inequity, injustice, and it's done brazenly, openly, and somebody will look at you and say, you can't do anything about it. But of course, if we need Nigeria to survive, we must deal with that. Another barrier is something that I think that we gloss over, because it's also tied to this question of both this and that. Barrier is called a lack of competence, a lack of vision, and I dare call it institutional incompetence in the country. The moderator here will listen to you in your advert for Duchess Hospital, and every time what you say there is, come here, this is the best place for you. But just think about this. Sometimes in January 2017, Nigeria was dragged to court by a relatively unknown company called P&ID, Process and Industrial Development. I think, Olu, you should know about this. And in that thing, they went to arbitration. From that arbitration, Nigeria now was supposed to pay $6.6 billion to this little-known company. And $6.6 billion, by the time they now went into further discussion, the money was accumulating, and it is now $9.6 billion, about 1/3 of our foreign reserves. So you ask yourself, how did a little-known company be awarded this? One enterprising journalist from Nigeria called Fikayo Akeredolu looked into the matter and came out with this story. P&ID was a shell company registered in British Virgin Islands with no operational history, did not have a website, didn't have staff, had not done any such work before. Yet, NNPC awarded the contract to take wet gas, dry it, compress it into dry gas, and give to power companies. And the question is this: how could, with all the staff that they have in NNPC and all the well-read people, not one single person checked to even say there is a website, you can see what these people are doing? So what are you going to call it? Will you call it corruption? Will you call it institutional incompetence? Will you call it just sheer idiocy on the part of us Nigerians? But here we are today. We are still fighting that battle. And if we lose it, 1/3 of Nigeria's reserves will go to somebody, because they mentioned the name of the person, but I won't bother. They said that his job is to find weak countries, go in and fleece them in this manner. And that right now, that company has been bought by another group whose job is always to take from third world countries. So it's very likely we're going to lose that case. And think about it. How did we get to this point? What will you call it? It is because instead of getting the right man for the right job, the right woman to be there, either because of ethnicity, either because of religion, either because of something or the other, we put the people who will ruin the country that way. And when you pass that, and I've said, we don't know whether we'll call it this, but we can't run away. We can't run away. That another big barrier is the barrier of graft or corruption or prebendalism, anything. You can't run away from talking about it when you're talking. It's one of the biggest barriers that you can look upon. On 29th May 2003, President Tinubu was sworn in. And in his speech, he said that they have eliminated fuel subsidy. 2 months later, he made a speech too, to say, from this fuel subsidy that we have eliminated, we have saved $1.3 billion, or about 1 trillion naira, in 2 months. In other words, this was money that was going into people's pockets. And he said it himself. He said, these monies were going to the people's pockets and everything, and we cannot continue anymore. And of course, Nigerians, some say, oh, that's correct. And some say, but what are you waiting for? These people who these monies are going into their pockets, are they not human beings that we can name? And that brings us back to the same fella in 1980. He did one song called Authority Stealing. Because if you want to know about Nigeria, just go and listen to fella. You will see what he did in Authority Stealing. He just said, two people were fighting. One said, you be thief. This one said, no be thief. Just look at what he said. He said that armed robber will use a gun, but that the pen robber, instead of stealing 80,000 with gun, he will use it and steal 80 billion naira. So, what you find today is that what we see as corruption is nothing but mind-boggling theft of our human resources. And unless we deal with this matter of authority stealing, we cannot make progress in this country. And why we ask why nobody has been called is because all of us here, myself from Government College, Umuahia, and those of you from King's College, you were actually trained. We were all actually trained to be the leaders of this country. And any time one of us comes to lead, then he will be assailed by all manners of things. Tony Cole will tell you his story. Not only did they steal the election from him, they even prevented him from going to court. So this is what is the wrong with this country. Until we deal with that, we cannot progress. But can we say that it is only very few? No. Nigeria is full of very honest, very enterprising people. The problem has been that we never make an example of the good ones. The late Bola Ajibola, when he died, the former vice president came and did an eulogy for him. And in his speech, he said that he was working for Bola Ajibola and that he was in his office when someone who got a contract by the government at that time went to his son, who was schooling in England, and bought a brand new golf car for the son over there. And of course, the son, being very well brought up, said to the guy, okay, just wait, let me talk to my dad first. And the father asked him to return the vehicle immediately, called the man to come to his office, and berated him in front of everybody to say, you cannot do corruption within this office. So there are good people in this country. Just a few days ago, there was some girl at a Kco hotel here who found $70,000 and returned it to the owner. And everybody was marveled. At this time, 70,000 is just like 70 million naira. And a worker that's probably not earning 40 or 50,000 naira still said, No, somewhere in Kano, a Keke rider carried a Chadian who came to buy goods. And that Chadian left his bag inside his Keke and he drove off. Later came around and was looking for the guy, heard in the radio when the guy said, oh, that he's finished. He lost all his money, which amounted to about 13 million naira. The man brought the money back. So it's not that Nigeria does not have the right set of people. It's just that the right set of people have not been brought to the fore. And I dare say, in all these political things that we do, some people also stand out. Mr. Peter Obi challenged everybody. I have been governor for 8 years. If anybody sees anywhere that I have been corrupt, bring it out. Till today, nobody has done so. So there is always somebody who we can use as an example of the good things that will happen in Nigeria if we break down the barrier. So to end this very short paper, let me say that some other people may do a much more immersive look into it, but this is just what I feel I could just do, just to say to each and every one of us, we can break down the barrier. But like the Chinese say, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Senator Abaribe. Very grateful to you. You have actually laid out what ought to be a very useful agenda for the rest of our conversation. But before I ask each of the panelists to step up to the lectern to speak for 5 minutes, I would like to break temporarily with protocol and direct one question at you. I would like to start precisely where you started in your address. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. There are those, of course, who would say that perhaps the wall came down as a product of several decades of espionage and a willingness to work together between the two leaders that were present at the time. But here's where I'm going. That speaks to a certain question of resilience. You yourself survived 3 impeachment attempts. And that is the nature of politics anywhere in the world. So here is my question to you, sir. Honestly, that our generation, the necessary grit and resilience to survive this terrain. Seated on this panel are 3 distinguished old boys who have tried. So over to you, sir. Thank you. I believe you can speak directly into the mic.
I think that the examples are right here that is possible. Right here. Mr. Cole is here. He's been there before, there, and he's still there. The key thing is that you don't give up. Because these things are meant to break your spirit and meant to make you not to struggle for this country. I'm very happy that Oluwakwata is also throwing his hat in the ring, because if good people don't come out, it's only the bad people that will give us one and again the bad conditions that we have today. Etigwe here has been in the front line. He's in Abga with me. They also stole from him, but he hasn't given up. He says he's going to be there. Let me tell you one thing, and this is what I got from President Obasanjo. After the second impeachment attempt, I now went back and I went to him and I said, sir, I'm a deputy governor and I'm going through this trouble. Can you give me another job? Let me just leave these people and go. And he looked at me, he laughed and said, okay, you have an impeachment attempt against you and you want to run away. Don't you know that when you run away, what they will say is that they have defeated you now. That means you actually committed those offenses. So you stay there and fight it out. When you finish and you now want to go away, you can now go away. So the point is that don't lose hope and don't go away. Stay with these people. They may be bad, but what you have to do is to overcome the bad. Thank you.
Here, here. Thank you very much, sir. I will now ask each of the discussants, starting with Mr. Funsho Doherty, to speak for 5 minutes to the subject.
Okay, thank you very much, Tokumbo. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Our keynote speaker, thank you for an excellent exposition. I especially enjoyed the Fela references together with the lyrics. Shall we say it is evidence of a well-spent youth? Well spent. So, I mean, I thought it was excellent. I think he touched on a number of things. I just want to make a couple of points in my contribution. The first is to say that a number of the things that the distinguished senator highlighted, whether it's corruption, whether it's ethnicism, whether it's religion, these things are barriers, but they're also causes and effects of bad leadership. In other words, each of these will prevent us from getting to good leadership. But if you have bad leadership, it also produces those things because people will then resort to ethnicity, resort to religious sentiment, etc. So it is self-reinforcing when you have those things. And I think the organizers of this conference actually picked a good word when they said dismantling the barriers because they are interlocked, they are intertwined, and you have to kind of take them apart. And to do that, you need good leadership. So I share his optimism, even though I, like my colleagues here, have gone through a grueling experience, but I share his optimism. And I don't think there's any one of us here who is ready to give up. We are forging ahead. Let me just close by making a few points. You see, the path to producing good leadership in the system that we run is democracy, isn't it? Which means that you have to go through election, people have to vote, and people have to vote in good leaders. Now, democracy, by virtue of democracy itself, does not, in and of itself, produce good leadership, right? It requires there are certain pillars that a democracy must have in order to have some confidence that that democratic system will produce good leaders, right? What are some of those pillars? The people have to know their own self-interest, and they have to act in that self-interest. Then you need electoral laws that are fair. You need an electoral body that is fair and diligent. You need security agencies that are fair and diligent. You need rule of law. You need a criminal justice system. These are the pillars of democracy that make you get the outcome that you want from democracy, right? Now, you and I know that any one of these can be challenged in our context. If you have an incumbent who has the power and the control, who is bent on undermining any of these pillars of democracy, it can be undermined, isn't it? And we have seen that. So I think it's important in bearing that in mind. I just want to give us maybe 4 things that we can focus on amidst all the other things that we can focus on, not giving up, remaining engaged in the process, that can help us along the path to accomplishing what we want or to dismantling these barriers for the political class. The first is that progressive elements in the political class, however you define it, have to come together and be united. It's important. If you have us scattered in our various corners, divide and rule, that phrase was invented in politics, right? We cannot succeed if we are very divided. A fractious progressive group is what the other side wants. This is number one. Number two, that progressive group must caucus within the party structures to ensure candidates are produced, right? And this is not a trivial task. If we don't work together decisively, we will not accomplish it. Noticed, by the way, in the flyer for this talk, that a number of us were referred to as aspirants. That is something that somebody who has not been in the process, it's a mistake that somebody who has not been in the process will make. I will never make it. Tonya will never make it. Because there's a difference between aspirant and candidate. And candidate is somebody who has emerged through the nomination process from a candidate. So I say that just to say that it is also an important part of it, and the progressive elements must work together to accomplish that. The third thing I would say is we must be innovative and the use of technology. Technology is something that people have used in various fields to level the playing fields, to remove unfair advantage, to give people an ability to compete. As progressive political elements, we must better use technology. In the last election, we focused on the regulators' use of technology. Beyond regulators' use of technology, we as participants must think about how do we use technology to advance our political cause, support our efforts, and defend our victories when we win them. The final point I will make is to say that, you know, this question of election litigation, I think is important. People have to fight for their mandates. But, you know, there's always a flurry of activity after each election to go and try and win back a mandate that was stolen from you or that you lost. And once it is clear that you cannot surmount that thing to overturn it, a lot of interest is immediately lost. But a lot of the time, in the course of that activity, evidence may be adduced that points to electoral offenses, criminal offenses, that while they may not overturn the eventual outcome, there are criminal offenses that have been committed and they should be punished. And if they are punished, even if it didn't change the election result, the person who is going to commit that offense next time will think twice. So I think that that element of it also, progressive political elements must come together and think about how do we create and strategize and make that one of the elements of our strategy. These are just 4 suggestions for the political class. I think for the electorate and the young people here, you've engaged, you've proven that you are not just a force, but you are in fact the hope. And that engagement must continue, and it must become a partnership with the progressive political class to produce the outcome that we want. We have a common enemy. The enemy that is arrayed against us is those forces that the distinguished senator has spoken about. Those forces that would utilize our democracy for rape and plunder. And we say no. If we work collectively, the progressive forces can prevail and we can have a democracy that advances the cause of shared prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doherty. As we move on to Mr. Uwa, the question I would like to leave hanging in the air is the one you alluded to. Can a well-intentioned generation of leaders be expected to thrive in an environment in which our democracy and all of the structures that make up that democracy are persistently undermined. I'll leave that hanging. Perhaps we'll return to it later. Mr. Uwa.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think the place to start from is to say that we are in very dire situation as a country. And it's important for all of us to realize that if things continue the way that they are going, those who are students of history know that it's only a matter of time before you have a self-correcting event. Whether that self-correcting event results in correcting the situation or plunges us down the alley of a failed state would depend on those who immediately take control and try to steer the country. We're at that point. And let's not make any mistakes. Many countries have not reached where we are, and everything has gone up in flames. So this discussion is very, very, very important. The last 3 Kings Week, we've been talking about nationhood. Last year it was the Nigeria of our dreams. This year is the same topic. And that's because I believe everybody knows that we have a major problem. I want to thank the distinguished senator for a very wonderful presentation. I agree with him that ethnicity and religion are major issues. But permit me to say that ethnicity and religion may not be the real problems themselves. Ethnicity and religion and poverty have been weaponized by the political class for their selfish interest. The greatest barrier that we have is the barrier which has been created by the class to which all of us on this high table or on this podium, except the doctor, belong to. That is where the problem is. We have the problem of a political class that is afflicted by what Bertolt Brecht refers to as the blindness of the great. They get into power and they think they will be in power forever. They seize power and they allow a succession only by the anointing of the incumbents or the political godfathers. It is only Nigerians who can resolve to dismantle this kind of barriers. And how can we dismantle it? The political structure in Nigeria has to change. I've always held the view that until we realize that we're in a political state of emergency and we act in a manner that shows that we're in that situation, not much will happen. Let's forget about the PVCs. The last election, there was a lot of hype about the PVCs. In my view, the PVCs may not be as important as the PMCs, the political party membership cards, because the political parties are the first filtration level. If the political party does not nominate you, then you can't go there. Assume you have 5 political parties. Political party number A nominates an armed robber. 2, a rapist. 3, a kidnapper. 4, a certificate forger or whatever. At the end of the day, you don't really have a choice. By the time you are going to the ballot, the choices have already been made for you. So, until Nigerians realize that people of goodwill there must be a mass invasion of the political space, not much is going to happen. We have a lot of these talk shows. But can we try to move away from the talk shows? Thankfully, distinguished senator is here. Thankfully, my brother, who probably will get back into the house, is here. After this event, would it be possible for us to draft a constitutional amendment, give it to the distinguished senator, and let us begin to do things about it? We should have a constitutional amendment that allows for independent candidacy, so that the stranglehold of the political parties in deciding for us the choices we can make at the polls will be reduced. Again, we need to have a situation where all the associations, MBA, teachers, except those who are in government, the association should make it compulsory for their members to carry the card of a political party. I don't care which one. I've made this point before, and people tell me it's unconstitutional. We're not living in a sane time. We're living in an emergency. Look at what happened in Ukraine the other day. They were living wonderful lives. Then all of a sudden, within a month, women began to carry their children to cross the borders. We shouldn't allow things to get to that level before we begin to take some decisions. Now imagine if we have about 5 million professionals in this country and they all flood into various political parties. Then the stranglehold which the political godfathers have will be reduced just by the sheer number of people who get in there. That is something maybe we should think about. Maybe I have not thought about it properly, but it's something we should think about more. Now, enough about the political parties. Electoral malpractice. And my brother talked about technology, but let me just make a few points. Why can't we not have an electronic voting system that is tied to your biometrics? As you are putting your finger there, it's being recorded at your ward level, collation point, the local government, the state, and at the national level, so that the counting and the collation is done electronically. Look, the banks have over 60 million customers. The telecoms companies have over 90 million customers. And everything is done electronically. You send money and you get an alert on an on-time, online real-time basis. Why can you not thumbprint for a particular person? And every agent, every candidate has a laptop in front of him. You see when you get one more vote. You see when you get 2 votes. In MBA, when Olu was contesting, from my laptop, I saw how well he was doing. I saw how badly the other candidates were doing. Nigeria is spending so much money in billions, and we cannot see the result of the expenditure that we are making. And then we now have a situation where we have a problem with the electoral jurisprudence in this country. Our judges tell us that the issue of internal issues in political parties is an internal matter, and they have no jurisdiction. How can? Then they tell you the issue of nomination is an internal party issue, they have no jurisdiction. All of this promotes political rascality. So I was in a particular political party, I don't want to mention the name. The chairman and the secretary will sit down in their homes and write lists of delegates and tell you if you like, you can go to hell. Most of my friends were in that political party, but I had to leave that political party as a matter of principle. I got into another political party, and Senator knows that currently we have a situation where some leaders of that political party are allowing a situation where we're supposed to have a congress at 9 o'clock in the morning. By 6:30, some people went to a hotel at a different venue, and by 8 o'clock, they had announced the thing on the radio. And some of us said, this cannot happen. And they keep telling us, no, that's the way it's done. It's the leaders who determine it and all of that. We need to determine, do we want a country or do we not want a country? So there are many, many, many other things that are barriers. Look, the issue of corruption, for instance. Corruption feeds into the issue of godfatherism. Somebody gets into government, he steals so much, so he has so much money. Now you can't do a gubernatorial election without having as much as 10 billion naira. Why? And if you're an honest professional, you're an honest businessman, it's difficult for you to take 10 billion naira and invest in a gubernatorial ambition if you do not plan that when you get there, you're going to recover the money back. What are we doing about it? So you see that poverty has been weaponized by corrupt politicians and corrupt political godfathers, and they use our money, our common patrimony, to put us under subjection. So let's stop these talk shows. We've had a lot of these talk shows. Something needs to happen. Nigerians are the only ones who can take back their country. We cannot allow a situation where some people will hold the country captive. And the political class is the major barrier that we have. It's not religion. It's not, I went to Sri Lanka once, and I found out that they had an equal amount of Muslims and Christians. And they did things together. They didn't have any clashes. So at the end of the day, we have some selfish politicians who have decided that they will weaponize certain things so that they can divide us, and by dividing us, they will perpetuate themselves in power. The final thing I'm going to say is this issue about the federal character. The federal character is good. The federal character is also bad. Part of the reason our politics is where it is today is because there are sharp divisions in the country. It's led to all kinds of agitations. It's led to the killings of several Nigerians. At the root of some of these things is that I am very conscious of the fact that I'm a Kanuri man. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm an Igbo man. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm a Yoruba man. But at the time when we sat in our classrooms in King's College, it wasn't a consideration. And we look at our trustees, we look at, the ones who have gone ahead of us. They are in their 80s and in their 90s. And we see the relationship, we see the bond between them, and we say, why can't Nigeria be like this? And I have a few solutions. One of the things that we must do is to try and balance out the educational imbalance in the country. There needs to be a ministry that caters to the education of educationally backward states or zones in the country. If you don't do that, you're going to have a problem. The reason you're going to have a problem is this. Those people from that state will realize that if you have a fair competition, their people will not do well. So they will keep harping on the federal character system. That is good so that you don't have a situation where there's a capture of the resources of states by people from a particular ethnicity or group. However, what it also does is that it takes away the motivation and the incentive that people have to work hard. So I get into the civil service. I am an assistant director. I employ a youth corper. 10 years down the line, he becomes the permanent secretary, and I am the director. How do you think that I will feel working in that place? So I'm going to make a point which His Eminence, the former Emir of Kano, made. But I had that for the very first time in this college when I was in lower 6. And I believe it was our history teacher, Mr. Abiola at the time. He said the federal character system is good, but there must be a sunset date. There must be a time. Give everybody 10 years. You have to catch up. If we look at education in Nigeria, for instance, those who were first to achieve excellence in education were the Yorubas. And then after a while, the Southeast was almost catching up. Even amongst the Yorubas, initially it was thought that people from Ekiti and Ondo were not doing as well as people from the other areas. But today, you have the highest number of professors from that area. So people can catch up. If we don't catch up and we level the playing field so that Nigerians can begin to see themselves first as Nigerian citizens before where they are from, everybody competes well and you get your just due as a Nigerian. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to have these self-perpetuating, self-reinforcing imbalances that will lead to all kinds of agitations, so that when somebody does something wrong, you don't say you've done something wrong, you say where is it from. If you want to punish someone who has done something wrong, they'll say, oh, it's because he's from this area. He's not from that particular area. Nigeria just cannot continue like this. We can't. So we need to realize that if anything goes wrong, it's going to affect all of us. And we must put our hands together, work together, perhaps even sit down and look at our constitution again outside the National Assembly. I take the view that Nigerians must give themselves a constitution of their own. The constitution we have was foisted upon us by the military. And the National Assembly, in my view, is not able to give us a new constitution. The reason is simple. If you have a situation where in the National Assembly, one particular zone has over 1/3 of the members of the National Assembly, if that particular zone is enjoying certain benefits, you will never be able to amend the constitution. So Nigerians should realize that it is time for us to come together, sit down, and look at ways of moving the country forward. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Mr. Uwa. I will direct the question on educational imbalance to the Special Advisor to the President on Education later on. But I would like very quickly to touch on the point that you made concerning mandating party membership. Of course, as you raised, very ostensibly unconstitutional. But the point of a democracy, of course, is that we cede certain rights in order to attain the greater good. And it is different, it varies from society to society. But the question I have is for the audience very quickly. Straw poll, show of hands, anyone here who is a card-carrying member of a political party? Show of hands. Right, okay, so we have, if we exclude the esteemed students of King's College, Lagos, that is roughly about 60% of the cohort in this room. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Tonye, please carry on, take the mic.
Floor to everyone who's here. One of the challenges of speaking towards the end is that they've said everything. I really feel sorry for my brother. I don't know what he's going to say by the time everything is finished. As my brothers were speaking, I had to review over and over again that what can we say different? And I recall going back in time, roughly around the 1990s, early 1990s, as a young Nigerian, full of patriotism, leaving my job and everything that I had in Brazil when I had left Nigeria, gone to Brazil, and coming back to Nigeria because Nigeria was going through a transition to democracy. The military said they were handing over. My father, bless him, decided that he was going to come and run for president. And this young boy came out and joined the political train towards democracy. That experience in itself, both great, also punished and tarnished a lot of my generation from the experience of politics. By 1993, 1994, Nigeria was going through all sorts of things. I remember many of us deciding at that point in time that we will have nothing to do with politics. That, number one, was the biggest error of my generation. Deciding at that point that we will throw ourselves into, I remember clearly what we used to call it, where we could control our own destiny with our hands. And many of us went into business. We grew excellent businesses. Many of you know my background in business. Excellent businesses, employing thousands of people, making billions of dollars, and God knows what. Except we found out very, very quickly that there was no decision that we took, nothing we were doing, nowhere we went, that we were one, either greater than the nation that we were coming from. So wherever Nigeria was, that was our limit. So if we are down, you are down. That was number one. Number two, every political decision affected you, no matter how. Come 1999, we decided, President Obasanjo, that another transition was coming in. Again, we said to ourselves that we're not going to get involved in politics, but this time around, we're going to get on the peripheries as businesses to see what we can do to touch politics and see whether we can get politicians at that time to do what is right. Error number 2. You cannot change anything from the outside unless you are inside. But that administration had some great minds. Dr. Okalu there, my brother Kashim was there, and many others. They worked with my father at the time, they worked with Obasanjo, and they did great things. Fast forward to 2007, that administration ended and the next one came. About this period of time, I started to experience some of the biggest difficulties as a business in Nigeria. Things just went bad. And I remember one day gathering some courage to go and see one of the elders, a man who had been with the administration of Obasanjo at the time, had sat down with all of them, was political, had led political parties, and sitting down, my father's contemporary, sat down with him. And I said, Egbon, I have a question. I am very upset. Permit me today to speak to you with a lot of respect, but just permit that I may say things that may upset you. I was speaking to an elder. We are brought up to be very respectful. But Nigeria was just going in a way I could not understand. Remember that I was doing well as a businessman, but we were seeing the decay in politics and the structure. And I said 3 things to him. I said, number 1, sir, you were in a position, along with my fathers and all of you, you were in a position to ensure that when you were handing over power, that you will hand it over to a generation and people who will take it forward. How did we get here? You are to blame. He kept quiet. Listen to me. I said, number 2, you refused to select and train the kind of people that you had brought up as your children. Everybody had gone to London and America. You could not bring them back to train them into the political class so that they can take over and be good and so on and so forth. Cut a long story short, he allowed me to finish. Number 3, I said to him, I said, you know that there are 2 things that will take you out in politics. 1 is death. No matter how much you try, you will die. And secondly, a tenure. You're all tenured. And at the end of the day, 8 years has gone and you're out. And look at what you've left us with. Who is taking over? I was young. I was a bit naive. In fact, I was very naive. But he allowed me to finish. And then he replied me. He said, number 1, power has never, will never be, can never be handed over to anybody. You need to take it by force, or you will take it by determination. But that you will sit down in London, in King's College, in America, in Lagos, and somebody will call you and hand it over to you. He said it will not happen. He said, number 2, I agree that we will die. I agree that tenure will leave us. But the same people that you've abused and have taken over power, when they were inside the room, where were you? When they were inside, you said they were carrying our bags, they are this and that. He said, when they were carrying the bags, when they were learning, where were you? He says, that mantle that you're talking about will fall. Yes, it will fall. But only the person who is inside the room, when that mantle falls, will be able to pick it up and run with it. He said, you are nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found, and you have no business complaining. Number 3. He said, see this white shirt that you are wearing? You don't want it to be stained. You don't want it to be touched. You want to leave it as pure white, King's College. You want to leave it as pure white. There must be no stain on it and all of that. And yet, you want to clean, somebody else, to go in and clean this place you call dirty, this filthy politics, this dirty politics. Somebody will go and clean it, dirty themselves, make it neat, make it nice. After everything has been done and clean, then you will stroll in and come and do what? Said it would not happen. You want it clean? You have to come and clean it yourself. You want it straight? You have to come and straighten it. You want to fight it? You must come and fight it yourself. Nobody will do it for you. Finally, he then said, one, as politicians, we always make it look dirtier than it is. When you get in, they will slap you, they will push you, they will make it hard for you. If you run away and you go away, that's what they want, they have won. Said, you come in, you must stay, and you will find out that it is not as difficult as you thought, but you will not know it unless you come in. He said, number two, every single one of us here wants Nigeria to be better. But we can only do that with people who have the desire and want it to be better coming in to join this politics. He said, come and join it. Fast forward to the end. I left him for many years. I thought he had spoken, but let me prove him wrong. And I will do everything I can with my business, grow the business, impact lives, come back and use the business to ensure that I can find people who have the calling for politics, back them, and let them go into politics. I laugh in French. It did not happen. Not only did things get worse by the day, it became clear that we had become an endangered species, and it became very clear what the Leonard Silk said, that we were in a crisis. And every year there's something called the dumbing down of the political class. With each year, somebody who is worse than the last comes in. And each year, somebody who is worse than the last comes in. And after 20 years of looking left and right, I could not recognize anybody again. You could not talk to anyone on the other side of the aisle that would be either on the same intellectual level as you, same background, same desire, same love for Nigeria. And guess what? They had become incredibly wealthy, and they had become incredibly powerful. You couldn't get them out. What would have been easy for us to do in 1999 is now going to be a Herculean task in 2023. And that's what we're seeing. But every lesson that old man told me is coming to play. And that's why I am doing what I am doing now. And that's why we're where we are now. And finally, what Leonard say called PMV, the party membership card, PMC, that is the most important tool that you have. I test young people, and I say to them, I say, you know what? You can go get a PVC. You will do it online. Easy. You will get it. They will even post it to your house if you want. I said to them, I said, please go and try and get a political membership card. Try it in APC, try it in PDP, first of all, and find out how difficult it is. You will suddenly find out that it is one of the hardest things you can get. Why is that the case? That card is your ticket to anything in Nigeria, from the entry level all the way to the president. It gives you the access. And so the weaponization of poverty and the weaponization of politics starts with preventing anybody who can scale, who can think, who can talk, who can be, from becoming. You want to break down barriers, dismantle that system. Let us discuss our democracy. Let us discuss our political parties. Let us discuss our future. Let us discuss our constitution. Once we can do that, then we're on the right track to saving Nigeria. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tonyako. Moving swiftly on to Mr. Obanikoro.
Can
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? This is me displaying the gap, the age gap between us. Mr. President, KCOB, thank you, you and your ESCO. Thank you for all that you have done in the last year. Co-panelist, keynote speaker, thank you for being here. Life is like a relay race, and the person with the baton is always trying to make sure that their eyes is set on the person that is going to receive the baton from them. You want to make sure that you put the baton in their hand so that they can take off perfectly. So with that said, current KC boys, I say flourish to you guys, and I'm happy that you guys are here because this is about you guys. As I said, life is about relay. What we pass on to the next generation is most likely what will transpire in recent times. Let me share a few experiences. And I thought about what you said. I looked at the panelists and I figured that 9 out of 10 times I'll be the last person to talk. So let me see how I can deviate a bit or find a way to land my my message differently from the way you guys are going to pass it on. So I thought about it a bit. Now, just this morning, I left Ikoyi Club. I was driving home. And by the junction of Thompson and Glover Avenue, there's a red light there. So about 4 cars, we all stopped for the red light. Then this Land Rover came from behind me without even giving a care. It doesn't care whether the light is there or not. It just blew it, pam. Immediately left, the light gave us green. So I trailed him. Luckily for me, he went to Suya Court. So I drove behind him. And he had a son inside. That's actually why I was interested in following him. And I told him, I said, sir, that light that was red, I waited for it too. He said, yes, he saw it, that he's sorry. I said, I only came because I know your son is here. And you're only telling him that he's okay to do that. And that is what is going to be instilled in him as a young man. Last week, another experience. Last week, I took my daughter she's 6 years old by the way, to get her passport. So when I got there, everybody was, hey, Honorable, come. I said, no. I dedicated today. Now I want to use this age gap. I dedicated today for this purpose. So I'll take my time. So after a while, my daughter's iPad died. She now said, Daddy, let's go in front. I said, how do you want to go in front? Aya. I said, give them money. I said, who taught you that? Said, everybody does it. That's a 6 years old. Already she has that mindset that if you want to have your way, just, tip some people and you get to the front. But I said, no. The reason why we chose to come here today and at this time is because we have prepared ourselves and dedicated today for this purpose. So we will be here. So she put her head on my chest and she slept off. I said, no problem. So I was okay with that. Now I'm saying that because a lot of us, we act without looking at those that are learning from us. And that's one of the problems we have as a country. And that's why I said, let me sit down and see how I'm going to deliver my message differently so that at least you guys won't be hearing the same thing. And the things that I think that are going to help us break this barrier as discipline or indiscipline. I think as a people, we lack discipline. And socially and morally, the messages we transcend also are not necessarily encouraging. And then accountability. A lot of us feel like we can do things and get away with it without accounting for it. And then lastly, taking charge. Now, let me give a brief story as to taking charge, why I joined politics at a very early age. Right from this grade school, I knew I was going to be a politician. Now, I took a class. Initially, growing up, I always told myself I'll be a farmer. I will help Nigerians to eradicate hunger by feeding them. Then I took a government class. from JS1 to 3, we never paid attention to government class. But when we got to the SS classes, we had no option but to be serious. So I took one exam, and they asked me a particular question, and that always has stuck to me from that time. Under which these parastatals are under government. They listed which of these is not a parastatal under government. They put agric, education. I don't remember all of them anymore, but I remember agric and education was there. And then the fifth question, which was E, was none. So I had to look at that question very well again, and my answer was none. And that was practically the day that I decided that, you know what, if you want to make an impact in people's lives generally, you have to find a way to get yourself into government. Initially, my initial thought was that I was going to be a farmer. That puts me in just a section. And that's when I knew that I was going to go to school to do political science for my BSc. That's when I planned that I was going to do my master's in public administration. And those are the things that I have done. And while I was doing in political science class, there was a saying that they always said that if you don't want to be ruled, or if you don't want to continue complaining, you have to find a way to join the ruling class. And that also motivated me to come back home in 2006, join the campaign train. At the time, my dad too was contesting for governorship. And then fast forward to 2000. In fact, that year I also wanted to contest for councillorship, but I didn't have what it took because I just moved back from the US. So I had to study our environment. And then fast forward to 2011, I decided, you know what, I think I'm old enough. I ran to the lawyers at the time. Some lawyers said, no, you have to be 30 to run. Some lawyers said, as long as we were born 30 years ago, and we did the maths, 1981 was 30 years ago. So either or, we had prepared ourselves for the litigation. She did come, by the way, so I dabbled into it. And today, those experiences are what guide me, help me, and I try everything within my best to make sure that whatever I am doing, those behind me, they can pick one or two things to emulate. And that brings me to Nigeria as a nation. Like I said, indiscipline, accountability. Everybody feels that we can do anything and get away with it. There is nobody that wants to stand firm for the truth. Everybody just wants to find a way. Before, they say when there's a war, you turn back. But as Nigerians, we want to break down that wall and continue. So these are the things, indiscipline, social life and morale, accountability, and taking charge. These are the things that I think we need to hold on to as a people if we want to break down the barrier and start bringing up new sets of people that will lead Nigeria in the right direction. I'm not one of those youths that hide behind the umbrella of let the youths do it, let the youths do it. No. I think it's a collective effort. The elderly ones that are doing it today didn't fall from heaven. They also started as a young man or woman, and they've tried their best in trying to steer this ship towards a promised land. But unfortunately, we're getting there, but we're not where we should be. So I'm here to just preach that as a people, we need to hold ourselves accountable. I'm bringing this to personally tell us to challenge ourselves personally, to better ourselves, because our children are learning fast from us. And whatever legacy that we leave for them is what they will also try to emulate and live by. So I don't know how else to deliver this message, because my elders have said majority of the points, and I align myself with them. Fela's songs too also is a motivation. It always motivates me as well, because sometimes I listen to his lyrics and I'm thinking, how are human beings able to live in this era? But thank God that that is a thing of the past. If some of them are a thing of the past for us now, especially that song that has no water, no lights, no food. At least light is getting better now. water, light was I mean, it pinches the pockets, but at least it's better than back in those days. Water, we still need to work on, very much so. Food as well, fare a lot more better than we had it in the past. So, let me see one other point that tribalism, I think, also is a problem that we need to put aside. I remember when I was in these four walls, Emeka Wamu, Alex Oturu, those were the people that I myself always walked around with. Every time you see me, those two guys were always beside me. We didn't know what Igbo is, what South. In fact, I think I left King's College before I knew what South, Southeast, Northeast was. So that also is a problem that we need to let our children know that it shouldn't differentiate us. It shouldn't divide us. It's something that should always bring us together. And I say this with every ounce of confidence in me, because my wife is from the north, and I see how the two cultures, we blend ourselves perfectly, and we've not had any, we've been married almost 9 years now, and we've not had any major issues other than your regular couple space issue. But issues that will divide us as a couple, no such thing. So I think tribalism, our tribe should be one of our strengths. Yeah, I think I would get the opportunity to maybe start the next set of conversations.
And thank you very much, Mr. Obanikoro, and accept my congratulations. You managed to sneak in a few party political messages in there as well. But not so fast, not so fast. I'll start the round of questions with you, actually. The point's been made here about weaponizing poverty, ethnicity, religion. You touched on it yourself. So I will return to the question about socioeconomic disempowerment, specifically about the educational imbalance that exists in this country and how it's dragging things back. So what would your advice be in your capacity as special advisor on education, or indeed, what is your advice to the president concerning how we address this educational imbalance that we have all agreed is of prime importance to what we're discussing here today?
First of all, I think we need to revisit, especially the private schools. We need to revisit how they operate and just oppose it to the government schools. The private schools are far ahead of the government schools. We need to find a way to catch up with the private schools. And if government wants to, there has to be regulation whereby, like for example now, the government schools in my environment, they don't justify the amount of taxes we pay. There is no, it's just the buildings is what exists. They don't have fields, they don't have, what's the word I'm looking for now? Extracurricular activities that all the private schools offer, simply because the parents can't afford it. Like my daughter's school now, she has swimming, she has ballet, she has gymnastics, you name it, but we don't have such in government schools. So we need to bring the government schools standard high so that they can match the private schools. And so more funds has to be pumped into public schools to bring them up. Right. And schools like Unity schools like King's College, and in support of government handing it over to KCOB so that we can run it better than what is currently being run. And another thing that I know I don't know for a fact, let me say I know for a fact, but from some of the information that were available to me as a member of the House of the Ninth Assembly, is that there's a lot of corruption going on within the school system. and that has to do, that has nothing to do with us, but it's an internal thing between the civil service. We have to find a way to make them accountable for all the funds being allocated to all these schools. We are not seeing them. We need to see them. Like, if they say that this school has a computer class, let us see the computer class. If they say that this school has a stadium, let us see the stadium. If they say that this school has an Olympic-sized standard swimming pool, let us see it. These are some of the things that I was referring to when I was mentioning accountability. All these things, you have them in the books. If you go back to the budget, you will see them as done. But when you come to reality, it's not. So these are the little ways that I feel we can try to balance up on our education gap. And I remember growing up, we used to have students from, Alex was from Tanzania. This was my primary school. We had students from other countries. We had Ghanaians. We had everybody come to Nigeria.
Sure.
But today, I think it's just Nigerians that are schooling in Nigeria. So we have to find a way to also open up our schools to make them more enticing to other students. Let's have foreign students in Nigeria as well, because other countries also use that as a means of revenue, because they tax foreign students. Foreign students pay higher than local students. So that is also a way to raise revenue for our education system.
Of course. Permit me for interrupting you there. I believe there was a more fundamental point being made about the difference between the North and the South. And I think it was you, Mr. Owa, who made that point. Perhaps you'd like to press that home a little further.
So the point I'm making is simply this. There is something good you can take from every part of Nigeria. Weave Nigeria in such a way that maybe in 20 years to come, a Nigerian citizen is a hybrid, is a cross-pollination of many things. So today I was reading on social media that the MBA has adopted the Igbo apprenticeship program so that young lawyers can apprentice under certain masters, and after a while, you set them up. If you go to the North, you'll find some wonderful things then you can take from the North, from the West, from everywhere. The problem is that we appear to have a country, but we do not have a nation. And a nation is built by deliberate policy of leaders. We came out of the Civil War, and there was so much distrust. But then there was a policy of reconstruction, rehabilitation, and reconciliation. Then you had the NYSC program. Because of the NYSC program, people began to go to various places. And they saw, just like Senator, that all the preconceived notions about these areas may not be exactly the way they are. I have a senior Egbon who went to serve in Enugu. He married someone from Enugu. I think 3 or 4 of his other brothers also married Igbo women because they've gone and tasted and found they're not like that. My best friends are either people from Lagos or people from the North. That's because I came here immediately after the war, and I've been here since then. So the point I'm therefore making is this. If you have any form of imbalance that makes it difficult for Nigerians to compete and for things to go to people on the basis of merit, you are going to have a structural problem that will keep rearing its ugly head all the time. I went to Kano some years ago when some Nigerian children were used as guinea pigs for the Pfizer drug trial. And I started representing those children. This was in 2000, 2001. I filed the case in Kano. Because of the kind of things going on, I withdrew the case. And we filed in Connecticut and in New York. We fought that case for 16 years. What I then found out was that sometimes, and I'm sorry, I want us to have an honest conversation, the greatest impediment that those children had to getting compensation were their own elite. Their own elite felt that if these children get this kind of compensation, we were saying each of those children should get about $1 million or $2 million. And then somebody who has, I want to be careful so I don't give away but somebody who has been a leader, a major leader in Nigeria from that area, told us that the life of a child in New York is not the same as the life of a child in northern Nigeria. And then we got to a point, we fought these people to a standstill. The matter went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Obama to file a brief on the matter. After a while, Pfizer said, let us settle. They said, okay, we're going to do a DNA test to determine the people who were part of that trial. Close to 80% of the members of the Board of Trustees who were supposed to administer this DNA test were from the North. At the end of the day, only 8 people passed the test. When we inquired, we discovered that they set the DNA sensitivity at 99.9%. The DNA materials have been degraded. The trial occurred in 1996. The DNA test was done around 2000 and, I think about 2010, after about 14 years. Their own people said, set the thing at 99 point something %. So the point I'm making is this. It may appear good to you to say every morning you open the tap in front of your house, people can come and take ogi, take akamu, take water, and then you say, they hail you as Rankadede and say you are doing well. But you're not being fair to your own people. You're not being fair to your own people. And I am saying that Nigeria, if we must make progress, must have a ministry that caters to dealing with this kind of issues. And some of the elites who have come out from some of these parts of the country were products of people like Saudana, who made sure everybody went to school. What are the governors in that place doing? So, and I am saying, you have to try and ensure that everybody is at the same level. Because it's only when everybody is at the same level that if you have a fair competition, you won't have 90% coming from one area or 70% coming from that area. That is a structural problem that will continually create tensions in the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uwab. We are, of course, talking about this in the context of dismantling barriers that prevent leaders from emerging. I'm going to throw this open to the audience. Just take 1 or 2 questions before we come back and round up. Does anyone have any questions? We can take 2 or 3. I believe our esteemed President has a question he would like to ask, or he'd like to speak to this particular issue. Please carry on, sir.
Please permit me. I just want to stand where everybody can see me, because this issue is very important. Speaker after speaker spoke to the issue. In 1971, I think, a student was admitted to King's College, Lagos, from the north. He came from some obscure primary school in some small village in a state known as Kwara. I've told this story several times. He arrived at Ido Motor Park. In those days, we had the steel boxes. So he carried his steel box on his head, and he kept asking for the direction to King's College until he arrived at the gates here. That student graduated from King's College, Lagos, with 8 A1 distinctions. 8 A1, 8. Jani Ibrahim, the chairman of our school-based management committee. Our lecturer alluded to the fact that given the same opportunities, students from any part of the country can easily excel. Thanks to King's College, Lagos, I am a northerner by ascription, i.e. by the accident of birth. I am a southerner by achievement. Thanks to King's College, Lagos, the geography of where you come from in this country does not matter to me in our relationship at all. I'm at home in every hamlet in this country. I've forged friendship, relationships, even family, more from the south than from the north. What is happening in the country is unacceptable. And I refuse to accept that it has to do with where one comes from. In my class, we were 60. Only 60. There were 4 from Borno. Myself, Mustafa Damchida, Zachary Tata, and Zachary Kodo. Each state of the federation had a maximum of 4 students admitted and a minimum of 3. Fast forward to when I first assumed as president of the All Boys Association 6 years ago. 600 students were admitted. 3 from Borno, 3 from Bauchi. In my class, 60 of us, 4 from Borno. When I assumed as president, 600 were admitted. Only 3 were from Borno. And I challenged the minister. We went to the Ministry of Education. And I said, this is shameful. 3 from Bauchi. The 3 from Borno, 2 were Yorubas, 1 Igbo. The 3 from Bauchi, 2 were Igbos, 1 Yoruba. We were here a couple of weeks ago for the graduation of the SS3 students. And myself and the chairman of the school-based management committee were comparing notes. I didn't see 1 student from the 19 states in the north. And this is a unity school established to foster unity, funded by the federal government. Like everything else, it has also, admissions into King's College has become a victim of corruption. And is sold, by the way. When we took the battle to the Federal Minister of Education, the PAMSEC said to me, are you insinuating that my directors are corrupt? I said, no, I'm the one that is corrupt. I'm the one selling the admissions. Since I'm the one signing the forms. The people in the ministry doing it even had an agent right here in King's College. I wanted to see, and one of the directors said to me, so, what is wrong with having 2 Yorubas and 1 Igbo admitted from Borno? That if the parents live there and they're school there, I said nothing like that. On the day of the resumption of school, I came here and I asked to see the parents and the students. So what school did you attend in Maiduguri? Blank. Where do you live in Maiduguri? Blank. You are from Bauchi. And these students will carry this for life. they've been assigned new states. Again, our guest lecturer did very well. Maybe why I kept losing, I did the governorship twice, and I lost twice. Then we had not held this lecture. We had not spoken about how to dismantle the barriers. And probably why I kept losing was my message was wrong. I said I'll make education free, but compulsory. Every school-age child must go to school. In the early 60s, when my dad had the foresight to move my family to Lagos, school enrollment was, and school enrollment still is, 100% in Lagos. So it didn't matter if like Etigwe or SAN, you lived in Ajegule, or in Mushi, or in Morocco. Every child attended school. School enrollment was, and is, in Lagos, 100%. School enrollment should be 100% in every part of the country. It doesn't matter, Borno, Bauchi, wherever it is. And it must be made compulsory. Primary school, compulsory. Secondary education, free and compulsory. So what was the second leg of the message that did not go down well? I said, if you refuse to send your child to school, I will send you to prison. And I kept repeating it, and people kept telling me, look, stop saying it. So if every child is enrolled in school, where will you find almajiris? It's so simple. You see, I refuse to address the issue of the almajiri education. My 2 elections, I just focused on the need to enroll every child in school. Just enroll them. Then there will be no almajiris. And my friend, Senator Abariba, is right. Saudi Arabia is the capital of Muslims. You won't find one almajiri there. In Qatar, in Egypt, in Morocco, in Tunisia. Across the Arab world, there are no almajiris. Why should we have almajiris in Nigeria? So, whether you are from the north, from the south, from the east, the key thing is every child, education should be declared as a right for every child up to secondary school. And it should be made free. Most especially in the so-called educationally disadvantaged states. Again, it's not just in the field of education, giving the right advantages, the same privileges, the same opportunities. I believe that each and every single one of us can excel. My own personal motto is, anything that the Igbo man can do, believe you me, I will do it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very, very much. I believe the chairman would like to lend a word to this before we close. Mr. Akpata. Yeah. Then once he has spoken, I will come back and run one very brief question through the panel, and we will close this session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I realize we're running out of time, and I just was not going to allow the moment pass without me, without chiming in. And I wondered whether I should, because of course I'm chairman planning committee. I was involved in putting together this session, but maybe it would be good to know what were the thoughts that were in my head when we sat as a committee to put this together. So one barrier that I see is the barrier of those who have gone before us, who remain before us, who stand before us, who tell us to be compliant, who tell us not to rock the boat, who call for the pele-pele approach, who say that we will get there, things will get better, and they mean well. But I have come to realize I will be turning 51 this year. Things are not going to get better if we don't do something about it. So I'm with Etigwe, senior advocate, and with Tony and I have had these conversations at least 20 years. We have been trying to be compliant. Even here at King's College, even in the Old Boys Association, I have personally had my own run-ins with establishment, because you are supposed to be compliant, stand in line. There was a day we came here for an election, because it's important, because one thing that we must do is speak truth to power in all of this, if we are going to dismantle barriers. Came here for an election, and you know, in those days, KCOBA elections, 100 people in the room, no big deal, you could just count. On that day, because some of us had gone to town, and we had woken up our sleepy electorate, the hall was full. We had over 400 to 500 people who wanted to vote. And the elder said we will do by show of hands. I said, it's not possible, sir. We can't do show of hands with a full hall. What do you want to do? I went to Igbosheri and I bought ballot boxes. And we bought ballot paper. I said, no, let us vote here at the King's College Assembly Hall. I said, no, we are King's men. We are all gentlemen. Show of hands. I said, no, we don't want to change. If we want to change status quo, people, the first thing we need to dismantle the barriers. And it was Atedo Peter Side who said this to me in his house when we were talking about this session. The people, party card, we are going to have to dismantle. It is only the people that are going to get us that are going to dismantle those barriers. So we must get them on side. So the point I made was that our elders also have to ensure that they don't constitute themselves into barriers. So they must, where it is necessary, make way and let us move. Like Tony, I have been practicing, I think I've succeeded at what I've been doing. This is my 30th year as a lawyer. I was able to shake tables enough. I even became president of the Nigerian Bar Association when people like me ought not to get there. But I've decided to leave that and leave my comfort zone. So we are going to have to do things differently. And our elders will also need to understand that sometimes we may not play it by that other rule book. The tree of liberty will be watered time and time again by the blood of despots and patriots. Two, it's not one, it's despots and patriots. That wise man, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, who said that. It is not a tea party. It will never be. I happen to be Tonye's lawyer also, so Tonye will tell you. So, we have to unlearn a few things. I thought I should let us know that certain approaches will not work on this journey. And I must thank our president, because I think it was a result of the fact that he is president now of the Old Boys Association that has woken in many of us the need to re-approach the issue of governance in Nigeria from the King's College perspective. And so I call on all of us who are saying we want to do this to understand that there are certain things that we have to do differently. And our elders will also have to understand that they need to just shift slightly and let us go and unleash us, because it is not going to work if we don't go out there. President Tinubu has said many things and done many things I don't agree with. But in the course of running for president, he made the famous statement that even Toyin repeated here: nobody hands power over to you. And you grab it, you snatch it, and you take off. I agree with that, because that's the reality. That's the reality of our politics in Nigeria today, if you are waiting for anybody to hand it over. So, to my brothers, KCOBs, all of us, I'm going for it. I've made that clear to as many as are interested in listening. But we all have to, at least if not all go for it, we have to select our people, ours, who can go for it. And the tenacity that is required, we must understand that it is not a sprint. It's a marathon. And it's our sincerity of purpose that will determine whether or not we are going to stay the course. And we must, like I said, speak truth. I have very little patience for, the way we used to do it or the way we do it. No. Because it's obvious that the way we do it has not worked. So we have to do it differently. I'm sorry if I'm ranting, but I just thought I should let you know my thoughts. And talking about Dr. Idika, Dr. Kalu just put up his. You want us to? Can I pass the mic over to Dr. Idika Kalu?
I thought I should properly represent the elders. I'm very happy that my distinguished senator is here. You see, more and more, we have to create a conduit where what we talk about gets to those who are making policy. There are two things I want to charge Senator Abaribe to take forward. I'm sure he probably has had this from me before. One is a constitutional restructuring to get us away from sections, to get us into what I call development units. I've written about this since the time of Abacha. How feasible will it be for us to look to the future and restructure this country into development units, say 650,000, 750,000, redraw the map back to the local government. I think somebody said something about that recently, how we should really go back to the local government. Everybody belongs to a local government. Restructure in a way to reduce the number of local governments to those units that can take on virtually all development plans, except the issues of stamps and foreign affairs and so on and so forth. So we restructure back to half of the number of local governments that we have now and empower those local governments in the constitutional amendment so they can take on a lot of these things that we have spread around between the federal and the zones and so on and so forth. So that is one thing I think I would like you to comment on it and take it up as something we have to do to blot all these geographical, ethnic, religious divisions. Let's get only half of the local government. But by golly, those who belong, those who reside in these local governments must have, by the Constitution, equal citizenship, equal political rights. Their children and children, 50 years from now, they will be like we were when we came to King's College. I came to King's College in about the mid-50s. I went through here 7 years. Well, all these things never counted. Like people now say it with such pride. They never counted. Whether so many came from here or so many came from there, there was a common denomination. So that constitutional restructuring we must tackle. What will it take? In the course of redrawing into 365, or no, half of the same, 365, 370, 375 local governments, you have development units that can actually take up just about everything, except the very largest. And for those ones, states, if we now determine how many states we want, and how many zones we want, and a center that has this limited power that can only be exercised by the center. So that is what I want you, we can talk about this. I have it written up over the years. Since the Abacha period, I've been pushing this. The second thing I want to say is from all what we've said, one can sift the fact that education is key. We cannot restructure our society unless we go back to education, as our president here has said. With the resources we've had and the leverage we can have on these resources, there's absolutely no reason why primary education, secondary education, with a lot of bursaries or even higher education, and it should be free and compulsory. We should, after 60 years of experimenting, and it has some benefits, but I think it's about time we abandon these cut-off points, cut-off limits, special this and special that. Some of those who came in 1959 when they started the quota, some of them came from the north. They were among the brightest that have come through this school. So me, I have never had any problem with that. This notion that some areas are disadvantaged or not. So, two things. A thoroughgoing restructuring of the Constitution that allows for more or less equal this, and we can get experts from the UN or wherever with our own cartographers. Redraw the area to give us 365, 375 local governments, and the Constitution confers citizenship rights to every member, whether you are from Madugri and you are in Ngwaland, or you are from Owo, or you are from Degema. As long as you choose to this in these areas, you have the same rights as anybody else. I think that is going to be a very important structural change. The second one, of course, is education. We can't have the resources we have and people are struggling to pay for education. I'm not going to some of our recent policies that have aggravated that, but I think on the surface, we have enough resources to make sure that every Nigerian goes to school free until the very highest level. In fact, there's no reason why you should not give me all the levels, at least up to first degree. You can increase the bursary and what the parents have to come up with as you go higher up into, say, undergraduate study and so on and so forth. Those are the two ideas I thought I should convey here with Senator Aberibe here. And also, I think, as King's College Old Boys, wherever we are, along with some of our colleagues from Ugeli, Umoya, those are the schools we will reckon with in those, never mind all this private school stuff and so on and so forth. Let's get back to giving everybody the quality education they got, regardless of where they came from. Of course, corruption is a hydra-headed monster which has to be tackled. But we are talking about structures that need to be changed in order to change the society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Distinguished Senator, do we dare hope that you're going to respond to that in 30 seconds? Flat? No, not at all. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We, I believe we have a question. We have a question from one of the students. Young man over there has shot his hand up. Can you pass the mic to him? Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
My name is Remy Michael. I'm currently the Student Representative Council President and also the Press Club President in this very institution. Actually, my question was to It's Tigwa Uwa, the gubernatorial candidate for Abia State. I felt he was a lawyer, you know, I saw senior advocate of Nigeria. And my question was this.
You just missed him.
Sir?
Carry on. You just missed him, but carry on. Ask the question.
My question was this. Growing up as a young child, they told me that the judiciary was, you know, the poor man's hope, the hope of the common man. But in Nigeria today, we see that the judiciary is actually a weapon of the political class. And why do I say this? Looking at the general elections of last year, so even this year, I mean to say, the general elections 2023, electronic devices was used in the election, and to give Nigerians a hope that the elections will be free and fair. But no, that wasn't the case. And it was brought into the court, into the tribunal, and the presidential tribunal said the INEC has the right to, you know, choose or do or transmit the election results any way they like. And that led me to the question that, what hope do they give the common Nigerian? What hope? Because I'm talking to a friend of mine saying, what hope do we have for Nigeria? All they tell me is that when we just get there, or if I should even get there, all I will just do is I'll be like, the people we have there want steal money and save my family and run away. What hope do the judiciary actually give Nigerians if the judiciary still stands to remain as a weapon for the political class to achieve their personal gains? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I must congratulate you on asking that question. Thank you. Thank you for that question. It's a similar question I was going to direct to Mr. Uwe myself. That how far do we think that this entire process has undermined the judicial system in this country? But there's a legal point there and a question of social justice. Mr. Doherty, do you want to respond to that very quickly?
Thank you. Well, and thank you for the question. It's a brave question. I'm not a lawyer, so the legal questions, you know, I can't really determine. The legislators who passed the act had certain things in mind when they put the provisions that they put there. Whether their intendment is aligned with the way the justices have interpreted that particular provision in reaching their judgment. Perhaps the distinguished senator can tell us. You know, the judiciary, you see, this notion of the decline in our system, you know, maybe corruption, what have you, is pervasive across our system. So, you know, if we see evidence of it showing up anywhere in the economy, including the judiciary, I'm not sure that it's something that should shock us. I'm not speaking to this specific point that you made. I'm speaking generally. But, you know, our judiciary is our judiciary. Maybe we should be more concerned with how do we appoint people to our judiciary. Is that process sufficiently robust to ensure that the people who occupy those seats are deserving of those seats and will pass the judgments that reflect justice? And maybe that is something to look at. I think it's always challenging when you try to second-guess a judgment that a panel, a court of appeal, a Supreme Court makes. Because if we question our Supreme Court, then really, I don't know where you go after that. I personally try to take a practical approach to things. So for me, and you know, the comments I was making earlier speak to this, is really more around what can we do? Because, you know, very often we get into these panels, these discussions, and a lot of the same issues we talk about, you know, we need to revisit the Constitution, we need to do this, we need to make amendments. These are big things. Some of them, we might get them in 5 years, we might get them in 10 years. Some of them, we might not get them for 20 years. As a practical matter, what are the things that we must do to better position progressive elements to be successful within the structure that we presently have? Because that's the structure that we have. That is the structure that we have. And the people that we are competing against are competing in that structure. And so that we don't keep ourselves in a room discussing amongst ourselves perennially, whilst they have figured out how to compete in the system that we are operating and compete effectively, I think that that's not a winning formula. And we also don't want to be niche radicals, being radical in our room, right? Whereas there's a broader political game out there. And that's why I think it's going to be very critical. Yes, we should play the game differently, but we must understand that politics is not a niche game. You don't win by being a niche. You have to be, you can start as a niche, but you have to be mainstream to win. And as a progressive group, we have to come together and achieve that scale that gives us the ability to succeed. Otherwise, we will all be in our respective sort of corners, pontificating and being radical and being away from where the decisions are being made.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So in drawing this to a close, we have spoken of many matters here today. We've discussed the importance of ensuring that the integrity of our political system is intact. We've talked about ensuring we do not subsidize mediocrity. We've talked about weaponizing ethnicity and poverty and religion. Am I okay? Mr. Uwe has spoken in the context of declaring a political state of emergency, and it's all been very, very insightful. But I will end by asking each one of us one question, the same question, and I would hope you would respond in 60 seconds flat. I'm going to lean on one of the statements that you made, Mr. Doherty, about not making the mistake of calling an aspirant a candidate, so aspirant versus candidacy, and to talk to us about the power of the opposition. You have talked also about the importance of unity and organizing ourselves. So is there a place for this progressive element to organize into an opposition? Perhaps not a formal opposition. How important is opposition in progressive politics? And what are you doing, what should we be doing to ensure that we foster that in holding the government's feet to the fire? 2 minutes each person.
Thank you very much. I think opposition is actually critical. And everything that we do, because incumbency is so strong in an environment where rule of law is weak, incumbency confers unusual advantages. And so opposition must be united, must be strong, must be opposition that comes out not just at election time, but that is there perennially consistent. Some of you may have followed some of the opposition moves that we have been making in this space. It's very critical. Let me just touch on a point here. You know, we operate something which they call a first-past-the-post system, or a winner-takes-all system. And because of that system, it is the person that has the most votes that gets in there, even if it's 30%, 35% of the vote. So in those systems, and places where they operate those systems across the world, you'll find that they tend to trend towards two-party or two, systems, because both parties have to be, the incumbent and the opponent have to be relatively matched in terms of size, right? Otherwise, essentially, you have a dominant incumbent and a fragmented opposition, which doesn't give the electorate the effective choice that they need. So that's a homework for us, the political class, right? we have to organize ourselves, the progressive political class, in such a way that we give the electorate something that they can act upon. And then we become a partnership, I think, that can work.
Let's just look at one thing. With all due respect, for the young man who asked the question concerning the decision of the Presidential Tribunal, when this present electoral act was being done, I was the minority leader. That means I was the major opposition person in the parliament. And I led the opposition even to the point where on the day that we were going to pass that act, we staged a walkout because of this same beaver's transmission of results. Eventually, it was passed. Now, what that law says is fairly straightforward. It says that INEC must transmit the results electronically. It didn't say, oh, you have to choose. Then INEC itself also has guidelines that they put for elections. Those guidelines are also laws on its own because we empower them through another section of the Electoral Act for INEC to make guidelines. So whenever a court, with all due respect, comes and says, oh, INEC can leave their guidelines, can leave the Electoral Act, and do what they feel like, I just don't agree with that. So one thing that I can say is that opposition is necessary and completely necessary in a democratic system. Absolutely no way without opposition, what you have will simply be an autocracy. So opposition is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, opposition is as much a part of government as government itself. Mr. Toyako.
To the young man, I hope you like to read books. I read a book recently in this journey into politics, started studying some books, and I came across a book called How Democracies Die. And the author is Stephen Levesky, How Democracies Die. Just the preface alone, the opening preface of that, you will see Nigeria as it is today. How democracies die. And when you read that book, you will understand why the Leonard Silk was so worried about where we are in our democracy today. Because essentially we're at a place where other nations have been and democracy has been killed in that nation. So there are solutions to all of this. One of the things that we must do is the issue that where you have the kind of democracy that we have, the tendency is to want to lean towards a one-party state where you collapse all the instruments that will check and balance democracy, check and balance excesses. You collapse it, including the judiciary. You collapse it, collapse the security, collapse the regulatory institutes, collapse the political party structure that is meant to be a check and balance, collapse it all. So politics works hard to kill all of that so that you end up in a place where you have absolutely no opposition, which comes to your point, Doctor. When you get to that point where you have no opposition and all the instruments that are meant to be checks and balances of democracy are now in your pocket, then your democracy is dead. You no longer have a democracy. People tend to go in that direction. So what must we do? there are people like you, and hopefully people like us, who are being raised to stand as a barrier against the autocratic tendencies of democratic politicians, of democracies or modern day politicians. We must stand. Somebody has to stand and say, thus far but no more, and begin to push back and bring those kind of checks and balances back into play. But guess what? Likely, everywhere where this has happened, the first casualty of that system that is trying to fight back is the person who is fighting. The first casualty. So when you decide that you are going to go against the grain, then remember that you are likely going to be the first casualty of it. We're asking for a constitutional review. I can guarantee you that that constitutional review, the first casualty of that review, if it is done, are those who are in the National Assembly. Most of them will be affected by whatever review they want to do, which makes it difficult. But we have no choice. If you don't do that, your democracy is dead.
Thank you very much. It's like asking turkeys to vote for Christmas. Mr. Vanikoro, over
Thank
to you,
you.
sir.
I believe in opposition. I was once opposition, but opposition has to be vibrant. You have to see signs of positives in the opposition. That was one of the major reasons why I left the party that I was in at the time. The leadership had collapsed. I didn't see the opportunities for a young man to progress within that system. That's why I left opposition and joined the ruling party. So I believe in opposition, and it's key. It helps, especially when the opposition are very constructive, not just opposition for being opposition sake. So that is always appreciated. And to the young man that asked the question, unfortunately the SAN is not here, and I'm also not a lawyer, but from your body language and from your tone, I could tell that you had judged the case with the media, with public opinion. So my advice would be, and like I always say during campaign, try to follow the issues, leave above the rumors, because on social media the lies always, or any news, the lies always go way faster than the truth. So if you're not careful, you get caught up with the lies and forget the truth. So I would advise that you take your time, go back and follow the stories from the election day till date. And like distinguished senator said, I was also part of the Ninth Assembly that passed the Electoral Act. And yes, there was a part that said that it has to be done electronically. And luckily for me, I was part of the election as well. And I saw how humanly impossible it was for INEC to electronically transcend results, especially on the same day. Like my constituency, there were some places the election was being held till about 2, 3 a.m. And after that, they went straight to their local government. At that time, the beavers was even dead. So they could not transmit immediately. So those are things that I've spoken to a few guys in National Assembly, and I know that it's being reviewed again. So let's just say that the elections of this year was a learning curve for us, and it gave us experience. So I believe that when they review the Electoral Act again, we're going to get a better document.
Thank you, Mr. Obanikoro. Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Funsho-Doherty, thank you very much for mentioning first past the post, and it's instruments like that, together with things like proportional representation, that remind us that our democracy is evolving, but the responsibility to evolve that democracy rests firmly with us. On this note, I would like in turn to thank all of the panelists, starting with our distinguished senator, our keynote speaker, Senator Einaya Abaribe. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Mr. Tonya Cole, thank you very much for giving up your time to be with us today and to share these very deep insights. Thank you. Mr. Funsho Doherty, thank you very much for coming. A most enjoyable conversation. Thank you. Mr. Etigwe Uwa, who unfortunately had to leave us early. He is representing a client in court today, very important case, and he had to duck out early. We thank him as well. And of course, Mr. Honorable Babajide Obanikoro. I've got that wrong every single time in this conversation, haven't I? Honorable Babajide Obanikoro, thank you very, very much for being with us today. And it remains for me to say thank you to all of you for joining us. I will end as we started. The point of an educational system is to raise a cohort of leaders who will then run the country. King's College has done that very, very well for over 100 years. Long may it continue. But our role, our duty, is to dismantle those barriers that prevent effective leaders from emerging. Thank you very, very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shitabe, our moderator. A round of applause for the moderator and all our panelists once again. At this junction, and as is part of our tradition, I'd like to invite the president of the King's College Old Boys Association, Alhaji Kashim Ibrahim Imam, to please lead the presentation of gifts to our keynote speaker. Mr. President, sir. A huge thank you to Mr. President for the gift presentation. Thank you very much, sir. At this junction, permit me to invite a member of the King's College Old Boys Association Board of Trustees, Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu, to lead the gift presentation to our other panelists. Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu, sir. May I kindly invite Mr. Funsho Doherty, please. Mr. Tonya Cole, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Babajide Obaniko. Thank you very much, sir. And to our moderator, Dr. Tokumbo Shitabe. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Kalu Idike Kalu. And a presentation of a copy of the King's College Centenary Book by Dr. Kalu Idike Kalu to all of the panelists and our moderator. Thank you very much, sir. May I kindly invite all our panelists and our keynote speakers. May I invite the president of the King's College Old Boys Association, Alhaji Kashim Ibrahim Imam, to please join us on stage. May I also kindly invite the chairman of the King's 2023 King's Week Planning Committee, Mr. Olumide Akpata. Do we have the cake ready? Because after this we will cut the anniversary cake. May I kindly invite the principal King's College to please join us on stage. Also to join us on stage, the chairman of the School-Based Management Committee, Alhaji Jani Ibrahim. Please join us. May I also invite Captain Adegoke, a member of the KCOB Board of Trustees, to please join us on stage. Thank you very much, sirs. The next item on the agenda is the cutting of the centenary of the anniversary cake. I beg your pardon. With the permission of Mr. President Alhaji Kashim Ibrahim Imam, may I just invite all the members on the stage to please join us in cutting the anniversary cake to commemorate the 114th anniversary of King's College, Lagos. Mr. President, sir. We will be cutting this cake at the mention of Floret. May I invite the representative of the Honorable Minister to please join us in cutting of the cake. One, two, three, Floret. Thank you very much, sirs. Ladies and gentlemen, Kingsmen, we're not done. Please. Kingsmen, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as I invite the chairman of the 2023 Kings Week Planning Committee, Mr. Olumide Akpata, to please give a vote of thanks. Thank you very much, sirs.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Kingsmen. Please take your seats as we listen to the vote of thanks by the Chairman, 2023 Kings Week Planning Committee, Mr. Olumide Akpata.
Thank you, Moses. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our president, King's College Old Boys Association, our trustees here present, Dr. Idika and Captain Adegoke, the principal of King's College, our distinguished panelists, starting with our keynote speaker, Senator Einaya Abaribe. Distinguished Senator, I cannot thank you enough. Many will not know the backstory, that you only returned to the country yesterday into Abuja, and you very willingly came in here this morning, and you have been on the premises since 9 a.m. I want to thank you, sir. You have shown King's College friendship. You have shown us love. We will retaliate, sir. As they say in other parlance, but you know what I mean, sir. We are in your debt. Thank you so much. But distinguished Senator, knowing the voice that you have in the red chamber, there is a bill that we'll be bringing to you to help us champion in the red chamber soon, sir. Federal government has no business running secondary schools. That is what we think, sir. We recognize the rationale for setting up unity colleges. But like we always say, there must be a sunset clause. They were trying, when they decided to replicate King's College in FGC Warri, FGC Sokoto, and FGC Enugu, indeed the principal, the first principal of FGC Warri was P.H. Davis, who came from here as principal. It was my father's principal. We understand what the rationale was, but that time, the time to hand over is now, sir. And I will come to see you, Mr. President. We have already our plans in motion to come and restart what we tried to do under the Obasanjo administration when Obi Ezekwesili was president. Was Minister of Education. She was able to put in a policy where federal schools were to be handed over to associations like ours as managers, not ownership, as managers. At least we succeeded in getting that far. However, when the Yar'Adua government came into office, that was truncated. And one of the reasons why it was truncated, distinguished Senator, is that there was no law underpinning it. So, sir, we hope that you being from Government College Umwa here, and we know what you guys with the red blazers have been able to do for your alma mater. I'm sure you understand the need for us to also do the same. We are challenged, we are hampered by the reason of ownership or control. Because it will please you to know, sir, since 2007, as we started to count down to the centenary of King's College Old Boys must have spent over 5 billion naira in these premises, and I kid you not. Over 5 billion naira. But it's tough to measure. It's tough to manage when you are not the one running the show. So it's a very, very difficult situation we are in. And now that you have befriended us so nicely, sir, we know that we can count on you to champion this cause. It is a 114-year-old institution. It doesn't belong to us alone, sir. It belongs to Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. To the principal of King's College, we place on record again your support to the Old Boys Association. Mr. Andrew Agada, I applaud you on behalf of the president of King's College Old Boys Association. We thank you. As we said to you yesterday, you belong to a pantheon. You have worthy predecessors before you, great men, and God has blessed you by putting you in this position. We pray that we can continue to collaborate with you now and even after you are out of office. Through PKC, I want to thank our teachers who continue to help to mold our boys. Our vice principals who are here, I want to thank you on behalf of the association. I want to thank our older old boys who are here. Thank you for taking out time, for staying so long with us. Uncle Busuyi Onobulu, I thank you, sir. Dr. Aloy is here. I thank you, sir. We want to thank the General Secretary of the Association is here, quietly, efficiently with us. Rotimi Akinlade. Alade Somi. Akinlade was my classmate. I want to thank you. But we cannot thank enough the boys of King's College, our students who are here with us. Where's our school captain? School captain, please come forward. More applause. He occupies a position I couldn't even think about when I was at KC. And I want to just let you all know that we had a brief chat yesterday with my school captain, and I said to him, we will need for some of your colleagues to be with us today. And I will need them here at 10:15. And at 10:10, school captain was here and informed me that all the boys were ready, dressed up, and they were available to answer the call. And I was extremely impressed with him. And the only thing I wondered whether he belonged to High Johnson's house. But I just wanted to place on record the support that we have received from the boys. And we'll continue to, tomorrow we have a careers day, and they are the focus. We want to help them to think about what careers they want to go into, considering the world that we're in is changing so rapidly. Thank you, school captain. Thank you. Of course, in every operation, there's the back office. And so we must thank members of the Kingsway Committee, led by myself, but de facto, but de jure, led by Emeka Oragu, my classmate, who has handled this so deftly with other members of the committee. I mean, at dinner, we will properly acknowledge all the members. Speaking of dinner, we have our back to school careers day is tomorrow. We are trying to mentor current boys and those who have only just recently exited the college. We are hoping those who can attend will join us. And then on Friday, we have our Jumat service. It's taking place at the mosque that is located in the Bureau of Islamic Studies on Roxton Road in Ikoyi. We'll have buses here to convey present boys and old boys to the mosque and back to the college after the Jumat for lunch. And then on Saturday, we have a sports and fun day, part of which will, or at least as part of the events on that day, we'll have a cricket match between King's College Old Boys and veteran cricketers here in Lagos. And on that day, we are lucky and we are privileged to have the Honorable Minister of Works, immediate past governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer Dave Umahi. He will be with us in the afternoon to inspect the facilities, and then he will join us for dinner at the Civic Center in Victoria Island, Lagos at 6 o'clock. Governor Sanwo-Olu has also indicated he's in New York now, but we expect that he will be back in Lagos before Saturday, and he will also be joining us for dinner with our old boys, past presidents, members of Board of Trustees, and Mr. President has kindly, very kindly asked that we throw open the gates on that day. There will be no charge for dinner this year. However, you are all required to go online, fast fingers first, to go and register and provide us with the information that we require. We promise you we will not be asking for your BVN. We would only be asking you for relevant information relevant to King's College. And fastest fingers, we are hoping that all 300 seats will be taken up quickly, and we hope to have you all at dinner on Saturday at the Civic Center. Those who know me know that when it comes to partying, at least I have an A1. I have A1 in partying. So you know that we will have an exciting time on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we will be at the Cathedral on the Marina for Thanksgiving. Again, we'll have buses here to convey old boys and the present boys to church, and then back here for lunch just before we go in for the annual general meeting that will be taking place in this hall. As Mr. President has informed us, we are at on the cusp of a transition. It has been a glorious, glorious tenure. It is not in my place to even begin to speak about the tenure in past tense, so please forgive me, Mr. President. It is in present continuous. It has been, and it continues to be, a glorious tenure. But on Sunday, as Tonye Cole told us, there's one thing that cannot change, is tenure. Tenure will end on Sunday, and we're looking forward to a smooth and seamless transition, even as we continue in our quest to ensure that our alma mater, our foster mother, gets nothing but the best. I thank you all on behalf of Mr. President. I am grateful for the large turnout. Please, we have been online, so I must also, we have been streaming live on YouTube, and so I must also thank all of our old boys who have been online, our guests who have been participating virtually. Thank you for your participation. And for those of you who will be watching the news tonight, I think we're on Channels Television, we're on TVC, and so on and so forth. All of this is to continue to promote the good old school. I thank you all. Floriat.
Another round of applause for the Chairman 2023 Kings Week Planning Committee, Mr. Olumide Akpata. Just before we go, Kingsmen, ladies and gentlemen, may we all rise for the school song.
To cherish children
All students in our midst, please wait behind to my right. Students, please wait behind to my right. Thank you.